Thanks for listening to the Postpartum Standard. Today feels really special because instead of hosting, I am sharing more of my own story. My friend Hattie sat down with me to talk about how I was shaped by a very scrappy entrepreneurial childhood, the winding path through operations and health tech, and what it has really looked like to build Hone while also becoming a mom. We get into grit, money, risk, identity, and the quiet ways that motherhood has changed how I move through the world. My hope is that as you listen, you hear pieces of your own story too and feel a little more permission to build a life that fits you. Let's get into it.
I and your listeners are going to learn a lot about you today because I feel like getting to meet you in the season that I have has been so epic because I have just met you in such a powerful season. Like you're building a company, you are casually an exec of another company, very much full-time mom, like you want a pageant, like this is all like the day I met you, you were like, "Oh yeah." And these things, it was like, wow, okay, you're like in your superwoman era. But what I really would love to understand from like just kind of the overall arch of your story is just kind of the origin bits. Like as far back as you can kind of remember, like I'd love to just hear some of the moments that like really shaped you into like just the amazing force for good that you are.
Oh, man. So I grew up with entrepreneurial parents, and I think that was like the thing that really just put in my mind that like you can start a business, like no matter what, even if you have no experience in that space or like whatever, you can do it. And my parents owned multiple different businesses across my life. When I was super young, my dad was doing refrigeration work. And it was always both of my parents working together on everything. And I always thought that was really cool. And then my parents bought the meat market that my dad's parents had started. And they were just like getting to retirement age. So my parents took it over. And I was pretty young when that happened. And like, there were definitely some hard years. And I think I was too young to like fully understand, but I could comprehend. And like, I grew up down in Texas on the border. And so in the 90s, we had this thing called the peso devaluation, where like the Mexican peso just like lost all of its value overnight. And it completely wrecked the economy on the Texas side because so many people would come across all the time. But all of a sudden, they had half of the money that they had before. And so nobody was coming across. And it was crazy because as a meat market, we sold to a lot of like the taco stands, and because they were a wholesale meat market. And so I like very vividly remember like those were super hard years, but I learned from my parents that like you just keep going. Like what other option do you have? But I kind of learned that fearlessness of like, okay, what's the worst that's gonna happen? Like we're gonna not have money. Okay, we're gonna figure it out. We'll find a way. Like there will always be a way to get through. Like you don't just cease existing. And so that taught me perseverance and just keep going. And then my mom always wanted to own a barbecue restaurant. My parents had no background in restaurants whatsoever. Like my mom was like a bookkeeper by training and just learned all of this. And we had the supply side with the meat market. So they opened a barbecue restaurant, like a mesquite smoked barbecue restaurant, and did catering. And by this point, I was like old enough to kind of help out a little more. And so, like, I would go to catering jobs with them. And that was like my first taste of hospitality, which is like what I went to college for and what I loved. And I mean, it was wild. I think they had it for, I don't know, time is so like crazy when you're young. I think we had it for like 5 or 6 years, and then they were like, okay, that's enough of that. And then that's when they bought a racetrack, which was also crazy, a dirt oval racetrack. And then we built a motocross track in the middle. And so I learned how to drive an 18 wheeler, a backhoe, a tractor, like all of these things while I was in high school because it was just a family affair.
Yeah, they were like, this is today.
Yeah. And like my brothers helped out, my sister-in-laws, like we all just pitched in and ran the racetrack. And like we were racing there before my parents bought it. It wasn't just like out of the blue, but the old owners wanted to retire. And so we took it over and ran that for a few years. And then I went off to college and I was like, all right, I'm done with all this crazy. And when I was like going through it, I thought it was exactly that. I was like, this is crazy. My parents are like, I had friends whose parents were like surgeons and doctors and like normal things. And I remember thinking like, man, why can't my parents just be normal? Like
Right.
they were not the parents that like hung out with my other friends' parents because they didn't have time. They were running multiple businesses. And like looking back now, I'm so thankful because that set the stage for me to have the confidence to like do everything else. And my husband is the opposite. He did not grow up with entrepreneurial parents. And so he had a lot more fear around me starting my own venture. And like he's more of the grounded one, which is great for
There
our
is a
relationship.
one. Like the worst version does exist. And you're like, yes, yes, it does.
Yeah, and it's a good balance because sometimes I do need that grounding energy, but I think being married and like going through entrepreneurship with a partner made me realize how much your early years do form your relationship to work and money and like your concept of starting a business and like how risky that is and the I guess like weighing that risk reward side because like as an entrepreneur like there's a lot of risk.
And also know the value of having like just that other end of the spectrum, the one that's like,
Yeah.
yes, if we go bankrupt, that is the worst case scenario and we'll start over. But that part would be really intense. So it's like, yeah, no, that's fair. But it's also so valuable. I real quick back to like your college moment. Like when you were going to college, were you like, this I'm going to go check this out for fun, like I know I'm going to start my own business, or like kind of just what was your mentality going into an environment like that?
I did it because it was like the next step that you were supposed to do. I was a first generation college kid and I did it because it was like expected. And I graduated high school early because I was just super over that. So I graduated after my junior year. And so I was only 17 when I went off to college. And I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was just a business major, but as a freshman, you just take the basic classes. I had no clue. And then after a while, I figured out like, okay, I do like hospitality. I got a job at a bar when I was 18. It's so crazy in Texas. You can't drink until you're 21, obviously, but you can serve other people alcohol at 18 in a bar.
Airtime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was absolutely wild, but I was like, "Oh, I love hospitality. I love like being around people and I'm super outgoing." And I was at Texas Tech and they have a great RIM program. And so I was like, "All right, I'll do that." Like restaurant hospitality. I wanted to go off to Vegas and go be a casino host. That was like my dream.
And you would have been awesome at that.
I know it would have been a crazy like 5 years because I feel like once you're over like 25, they're like, all right, get out, you're too old. But then the economic like meltdown, the first economic meltdown of my lifetime in 2008, when the housing crisis happened and like everything dried up. All of the internships in Vegas got canceled. And for the RIM program, you had to do an internship. And I was like, all right, well, I don't really know what I want to do now. It seems silly to like keep racking up student loan debt to go to school. And so I just stopped going to school and like managed a shoe store for a while and I took some time off. And I honestly wasn't sure if I was ever going to go back and finish my degree. In my late 20s, I finally did. I did end up working in hotels in Austin as a concierge and loyalty ambassador and in sales. And I ultimately went back to get my degree because I was trying to get out of like the crazy hours of being a concierge where you're working holidays and 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. And so I wanted to move into sales and be like a sales manager for the hotel. And I remember very specifically, like they had an opening for like a junior level where you kind of get mentorship for a year and like move into a senior level, but you had to have a bachelor's degree to apply. And like, I don't know why I didn't just lie on my resume. Because, like, that's the advice I would give someone now. It's like, just write it. Nobody's going to ask for your degree.
No, they
No
don't.
one goes and checks your transcript.
Right.
So I just said like I wrote like a whole letter of like I don't have a bachelor's degree, but I was going to school for hospitality and like I'm very passionate about this and I've been with it was at the Omni Hotel. I was like I've been here for 2 years and I met with the sales director and she was so mean and she was like, you don't have a bachelor's degree, you're not qualified for this. I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna leave then. And I quit working there. I ended up switching to a Hyatt hotel. I was like, and when I gave my notice, the front office manager was like, please, please don't go, don't go. But that was the first time I was like, okay, maybe I do need to get my bachelor's degree because it matters on paper. So I took a year and a half and I went back to Texas State and I finished my degree in business, economics, and public administration. It was like three minors make up a major. So
Right.
got to use a little bit of everything that I had done. And like in hindsight, it was such a waste of time and money. Like,
Right. But you don't know that in the time. Like,
no.
you knew that not having it meant a bad thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like I was getting denied for jobs because I didn't have it. But like the first job I applied for and got after I graduated was in staffing and recruiting, running operations for this small firm. And of course, I put my degree on my resume. Nobody ever asked, like, can we see your grades or
Good call.
like, yeah.
Right.
And that's when I realized, like, this is such a scam.
I know.
And now I think about Amelia, and I'm not saving a college fund for her. I'm saving a when she wants to start her first business fund.
I love that.
Yeah.
But I think, and a part that I'm excited to dive into, I have it a little later in questions, but like just your ability to shift narrative and like approach things from a different angle. Like, what a prime example. It's one of the things I love most about you, but like just this idea that, like there is no traditional route anymore.
Yeah.
We're actively making it up as we go. And so why not make up a version of it that really does set your child up for success? I love that. Thank you for throwing that in there. But anywho, you're recruiting.
Yes. Yeah. I was running ops for the staffing and recruiting firm, and that was actually my introduction to business operations. And I kind of knew that that was the direction that I wanted to go because it's what I had done with my parents' business. My mom had taught me so much of what she was doing all the time. I knew how to do the books. I knew how to run a racetrack and like do all of this stuff. And when I was in high school, I didn't know like the words to describe what it was. I was like, I'm just doing all these things. But then I got older and I was like, okay, this is like a director of operations kind of person. Like I'm the puppet master, the ringleader, like, organizing all the things. And I just realized I'm actually really good at that. And I'm good at the multitasking and like being able to context switch and all of that. And I was like, okay, there's actually like a job for this. It's not just a weird skill. And like, this is probably my imposter syndrome or whatever, but like, I think that everybody can do the things that I can do. And it's honestly, it's taken until the last like year for me to figure out that like, that's actually not the case.
Well, and I think for every entrepreneur story, like in the beginning of that, it's like you don't want to charge that much for it because you're like, no, no, like you could, I can teach you. And then you're like, no, I can't. That is not your role. That's not your genius. It's not where you find your magic. But then that shift is epic because you're like, wait, this is my magic.
Yes.
What do I want to do with it?
Yeah. And that's really coming into that has been very powerful.
Would you describe like your magic per se, like director of operations, but like this ability to kind of like context switch and like just what are those describers for you?
Oh man, that's a hard one. I think like just being able to zoom out and take the 30,000 foot view, like at any time, and think about things from all the different angles. And like that was by no means like a thing that I just was like able to do when I was 25 and entering the workforce. Like that has been honed over the years by working for like really hard bosses who pushed me. And then I think it's like growing up as a millennial, you have like perfectionist tendencies. And like, I'm not trying to speak for all millennials, but a lot of us have.
Yes.
And so I just never wanted to fail at things or be bad at things. And so it made me like hyper vigilant too, of like every time something was corrected, I always thought about that in the future. But
Mm,
I think where my magic is I have the ability to do that, whereas a lot of people don't have the ability to hold all of that context and all of those different viewpoints at a single point in time. Like they just get too far down one path and then they can't see the forest for the trees or whatever the saying is.
yes. We use the example like you're right here in your business.
Yes.
And that ability to like zoom it out and see the whole picture, it's such a magic. And like so many business owners, even just in like the conversations you have with them, you recognize you're like, man, you are nose to nose with that tree there. It's
Yeah.
like if you would just come out a little bit.
It's
So it
just
is, that's a great example. Yeah. Okay. Well, so do you feel like you kind of found that of yourself like in your season pre-motherhood? Or like when was that kind of recognition of like, wow, this is my thing?
I mean, I've known probably for the last like 5 years, like this really is like my superpower. I was kind of I bounced around from different jobs. I did the staffing and recruiting thing for a while. I started my own company in the hospitality space in Austin.
Oh, what was your first company?
So it was before Airbnb got like super saturated. So I got 3 units that I was renting. So I didn't buy them. So I didn't have that cost. I was renting them. I furnished them. I curated like a super local experience because I had lived in Austin for a long time. I was really passionate about sharing that. And so I had like stuff from local spas and different things like that. So you kind of got more of the local vibe instead of like corporate
Land in
hotel.
Austin.
Yes, yeah. And so
Cool.
I had a 2 bedroom and two 1 bedroom units. And so I built a nice brand around it. And it's so funny. The whole reason I started that company is because I interviewed with a company who was doing that. And I like loved them. I totally jived with the founders. Like I had multiple meetings with them. And I was like, all right, this is going to turn into like a good job offer. And they were like, so we want you to start at like 10 hours a week at like $20 an hour. I was like, I'm not leaving my full-time job for your like internship. Like, and I also recognized I was like, you guys need more help than that. But then I started thinking about it and I was like, well, this actually wouldn't be that hard to do. So I was like, screw it, I'm just gonna do it myself and like build my own as a competitor to this. Like Austin's big enough for it.
Right.
So I did it and I built a nice brand around it. And then the city of Austin said they weren't giving any more short term rental licenses out because it had like just blown up and got overwhelmed. And so if I wanted to expand, I would have to go outside of Austin. And I was like, that kind of loses its like Austin was my place. And at the same time, one of the other competitors in town who like he didn't have a big brand, he just had a lot of units. He really liked what I had built around the brand and he was like, "Hey, do you want to partner?" And I was like, "How about you just buy me out and you can expand by 3 units and have the brand and I can go work on my next thing." So I did it and it was so crazy because at the time I was 29. It was like I finalized the sale like 2 months before my 30th birthday. And it took me like until last year to actually start saying, like, oh, I'm an exited founder. I always felt like, no, I just like built
Just handed it off.
like I just built a thing and then sold it. Like I don't know, there was some like my imposter syndrome. And then I realized like, man, if I was a man, I would have had like put that on my LinkedIn, like exited found. It's just that imposter syndrome always creeps in.
And
But
just the language shifts.
yeah.
Like, oh, I sold a business. I'm an exited founder.
Yes.
Like, that's cool. It is different, but I
Yeah.
digress. Anyway, please.
Yeah, so I did that for a while and I was kind of struggling. Like after I sold the business, I took a couple months off because it was exhausting. I did everything in that business. And I was looking for my next job. And at the same time, I went through like a crazy breakup. I had been with this person for 5 years. Like I thought we were going to get married. We had bought a house together. And like it was, my name wasn't on it, thankfully, since I was running my own business. So it was like easier for splitting up. But in that moment, I felt like, oh my God, my like whole life is ending. Like I have no job. I'm feeling depressed. I just lost my relationship. It was in the moment, I didn't know how I was going to go forward. And my dad just kept telling me like, one foot in front of the other. Like that's how you go forward. You just do it. Like anything else, you just keep showing up and going forward. And now I look back and I'm like, that is what set me up for like true entrepreneurship now. Because I pull so much strength from that of like, if I can make it through that, I can make it through anything. And what's crazy is the guy that we ended the relationship is now one of my best friends. Like we took a few years off from
Yeah,
being friendly and like we've now been friends longer than we dated and like are better friends than anything else. And like it's we've just been through so much and we've known each other through so many seasons of life that it's like it's a powerful friendship and he knows how to push me and he knows how to call me on my bullshit, which like very few people do. So it turned into the whole thing turned into like valuable friendship and just set me up for the next chapter. And then I took a job with the hardest boss I've ever had. And like he was so brutal, but at the same time, like the best mentor that I ever had. He taught me financial modeling, and that was like one of the big I knew bookkeeping and like basic stuff that my mom did, but my mom didn't go to college either. Like she learned by managing a hotel's books. And so he had like grown up on Wall Street and exited multiple companies, like founded a massive company that sold to Angie's List. And like he just was incredible. And after, I don't know, like 6 months of being there, he was like, I want you to take over the financial model. And I remember the first time he shared it, I was like, "Oh my God, I like don't even know how to read this spreadsheet." And now every single company that I've worked at since then, I've built the financial model and it looks exactly like the first one. But
that's
it's
it though. You
yeah,
have to go through one of those. That's epic.
yes, yeah. And he's still like I still consider him a mentor and like I worked at that company for multiple years. I left and then went back. It was like you're hard to work for, but sometimes like that's what you need. Like that something I've really learned and embraced recently is like you learn and you grow in that zone of frustration. If you're comfortable, you are not growing.
Too true. Yeah, it is. It's like I use the theory, the biscuit can. Like expansion is meant to be uncomfortable. Like you really do hit that point where like your biscuit can like physically can't take it anymore, that it has to move and like no, that is not a good feeling, but it's creating more space. And
Yes.
so I that's a great example. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So that kind of set me up. And then after I left that company, I was looking for a really good CEO to work for, like good and different.
Sure.
The other one was good, but he was older, like not baby boomer age, but like old Gen X. And so just like a generational difference. And the company that I work for now is my day job. The founder is the same age as me and just like really smart. One of the smartest people I've ever met, like bioscience background. And I never thought I would be in health tech, but it has turned out to be like the exact job that I needed. And we've been through, it's been 4 years, almost 5 years, I think. We've been through so much in these years. And it's like, I'm his number two. And we talk all day long and we've just faced so much difficulty together. And that really gave me the confidence to start my own thing again and feel like I could do it because I was like, man, I have been through the shit. I can do it.
Right. What do you feel like health tech like prepared you for in this season that you like weren't expecting? Because of a lot, obviously, like it's such a what a shift. But like, what's a lesson that you or a theme per se that you found yourself like really leaning on of like, wow, I'm so grateful for that right now.
I mean, I think it's like not so much health tech specific, but just young company, like growing with a lot of potential. And like we've gone through a couple of funding rounds since I've been here, and it's like a very fundable company, but it's still like you have to tell the story right. And it started out with three co founders, and now it's just like the main one. It's that has been like one of the most valuable lessons because my CEO handled it with like so much grace. He's one of the most empathetic and like positive humans that I've ever met. And watching him navigate that, I was like, okay, like it's things can end without them being like catastrophic and negative, and like it doesn't have to be this departure that's just like a blow up situation. And I never really had that modeled before where it was like calm.
No, and that's so important to be seeing of like, especially when you are building your own thing, because it's
Yeah.
all we can ever be focusing on is what we know at the time. And I think so much of fear around entrepreneurship is, well, if something shifts, well, if it needs to change, like the stories that we have been, like the loudest ones are always the most catastrophic. And so having something like that model that's like, not only can the company move forward, but it doesn't have to be ugly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, I don't know that I have a lot of examples like that. And so that is really powerful.
Yeah. It's been really cool to see.
Yeah. Okay. What do you feel like? Because I mean, that's professionally, I mean, what a ride. First of all, your parents sound so cool. I hope to meet them someday.
They're fascinating people.
That I believe. And I mean, if you were the product, that checks out. But I think just this idea of like, the grit, the underlying grit that has just been embedded in you is so like you can't miss that in meeting you, like in just the way you move through the world. And so it's really neat to kind of hear the origins of those pieces. And I'm just so glad that it brought you like where you are. And I have to believe, and I'm excited to hear about like the ways that grit has translated into motherhood. Because that's, I mean, a whole different sector. But like what those lessons, like of course tied in, but like what have you had to become, or like what have you had to grow within yourself to like really step into like motherhood while also being this like superhuman that you are?
Honestly, motherhood has been the most humbling experience like ever, because my entire life it's been like if I work harder, if I plan, everything will go according to plan. Like I can force my will on things, and like I my best friend always says like what I want I'm going to get. It's true. I have always found a way. And in motherhood, when you're dealing with a baby, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Like it's from the very beginning, it was like a test of my ability to surrender and like trust the process and trust that the universe has a plan and that everything happens for a reason. And like when I went through the whole life shift at 30, I started embracing like the concept of surrender and just trusting that like everything will happen exactly as it's meant to. But becoming a mom was like a whole new, it was like, oh, you've only scratched the surface on that.
Really?
Even like my birth story, and I always have to laugh at this because I feel like Amelia from the start was like, okay, mom, you're gonna learn what it really means. Like we tried for a home birth and we had midwives and all of that stuff, and then Amelia was breech, and the midwives missed that she was breech, and I was in labor for like 36 hours and only 1 centimeter dilated. And the midwives came and they were like, yeah, she's breech and we can try to turn her or we can deliver breech. And they were like, or you can transfer. And I just like, I didn't trust them anymore because they had missed it. And so, all right, let's transfer. And we went to the hospital and the doctor says, look, I can try to turn her. And I was like, no, I've already been in labor for so long. Like, I just feel like a C-section is right. Like, my intuition was just telling me, like, that was the direction that I needed to go. And so from the very start, it was like, okay, well, I just have to surrender to like things are not going to go to my plan anymore.
Dang. And on such a level of like, I mean, trust and surrender in every capacity. Like,
Yes.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
That is pretty massive. What
Yeah.
is she teaching you now?
Teaching me that she repeats every single thing that I say, and it has really made me a softer human. I I definitely I've been hyper independent like my whole life, and it's always been like I can do anything on my own because my parents were so busy when I was growing up that it kind of was me. And like I have older brothers, but they're much older and they weren't around. And so yeah.
Right.
So hyper independence and like I can't do that with a baby. And like that also disconnected me from my own inner child. And like I've done a lot of therapy work to kind of reconnect with that. And back in like the end of 2020 or early 2021, I did ketamine therapy, which was also like the most transformative thing that I've ever done. It is what prepared me for the relationship that I have with my husband because I had like consistently chosen people that were not matched to me because I hadn't learned how to like be soft with myself and love my inner child. And so I went through the ketamine therapy and I learned how to like identify my inner child and love her. And then with motherhood, it's like my inner child is outside of my body walking around. And it's like it is such a
That's a crazy statement.
it is so wild. And like sometimes people will ask me like how do you keep your cool when she was like losing it or pushing your buttons, because like nobody can push your buttons like a tiny version of you. And I always say like I just picture the inner child stuff. Like I remember that she's two, like she's a tiny baby who just wants to be loved. And like I have said before, like, becoming a mom made me appreciate my parents, but also like not understand on some levels like how they could have not been around more, and like just some of the choices that they made that like yes, I still appreciate them and love them dearly, but there were some choices that I'm like, as a mom, I couldn't imagine making those choices. But you do the best that you can. And like, I think everybody's goal is to just be slightly better than what their parents were. Like, especially millennials. I mean, we are the ones like breaking all of the generational trauma. And like, we're the first ones that have the conversations about mental health openly and like actually see therapists and do things to change the patterns and like interrupt them. And it's been really cool being able to do that in real time with a tiny version of me.
Your own little, yeah. I think one of my, I think a statement that I found a lot of release in around like, and I don't yet have children, but in the same way of like, you find these frustrations with your parents. And like, I think this applies to all beyond parents, but he can only, what is the quote? Like, people can only meet you as deeply as they know themselves. And man, is that not just the most like releasing piece? And so I do agree that like our generations, and the ones around us are that of like we seek to understand ourselves so that we can understand others a bit more deeply. And so to hear that mirrored in your motherhood is honestly just so beautiful. And if you wouldn't mind sharing, I'd love to hear like what's a part of Amelia that like you actively see so much of yourself in and like make a choice to like love deeper because of that.
Yeah, I mean, she has big feelings, as all toddlers do, but like when she was really tiny, was like the quiet observer and would just sit and like watch people and take it all in. And she has the biggest emotional feelings. And I very vividly remember from most of my life feeling like too much. Like my emotions were too much, like the swings were too much. And I always had that insecurity of like being too much. And I was always trying to make myself smaller. And so when she's having like big emotions, I never ever want to stifle them. And I like actively have an inner like dialogue with myself of like, okay, this is hard. It's hard that she's screaming and like losing her shit over a purple plate versus a pink plate. Like, but to her, like, this is her big feeling. And like, this is where I set the stage for her to never feel like her feelings are too much. And so I take a deep breath and I hold space for it. And I like hold her and tell her it's okay. Like it's okay to have your feelings. And like I'm trying to help her name the feelings and saying like you're frustrated, you're upset, like put words to them so that as she gets older, she can tell me how she's feeling instead of just screaming. But like I never want her to feel like her feelings are too much. And I think that is one of my biggest sensitivities from like my inner child too.
Man, that's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Ugh, you're just the best mom. You're the best being, but like I love hearing the way you just approach motherhood because it's such I just appreciate the openness and you speak to it so beautifully. I am really excited to hear too, like kind of this bridge because we're at the arc now where like you began all these things on your own. Like motherhood, I think like even with the best village is something that is so everyone must walk it for themselves. And then you went ahead and walked that and then also said, I'll start a company at the same time. So just tell me a little bit about that season of your life.
Yes, yeah. Well, it started out, it was just going to be like a side project. It's the very first iteration of Hone was actually called Honeysuckle Nursing Company, and I was going to make a strapless nursing bra, which I still have like four prototypes of, and like I still want someone to make it, but I learned through that process that like making a bra is really, really hard. And a strapless nursing bra is like, while it's very needed, somebody needs to make one. I was also only willing to use organic cotton on it because I feel very strongly about natural fibers, and Amelia has eczema, and that like really sent me down the rabbit hole of researching what different fibers do to our bodies. I It's so funny because if me from 10 years ago could hear that, I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, that stupid hippie girl."
Right.
That's so dumb. And
Put on your yoga pants.
now I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I will not wear polyester." Like I can feel something and be like, that's polyester, get it away from me. So it started out with the strapless nursing bra, and then I kept talking to moms and like having these conversations. And then I had my own kind of catalyzing moment where after a board meeting, I was trying to pump in this office. I couldn't get my pumps in my dress. I had to just like take off the top of my dress. So I'm topless in a stranger's office, hoping there's no cameras. And I was like, okay, this is my problem to solve. Like, so many moms had said, like, I've had such a hard time finding something to wear to work or like nice outings that allows for nursing or pumping access. And there's all of these like reels on Instagram of moms like trying on dresses and trying to figure out like how to get a boob out. And I'm like, this is a real problem, and it's also like a silent struggle. Like moms just deal with it, and it's part of the mental load, and you just take it on because what other choice do you have?
Right. Nothing exists.
Yeah, so you like try to make things work and you dress in layers, and like it's I can't even tell you how many times I like miscalculated, wore a dress that didn't have nursing access to a restaurant thinking like, "Oh, Amelia's going to be fine. She's not going to be hungry." Wrong. And then I'm like in the bathroom or the back of the car like taking off half my dress, and it's like I just realized that that was the bigger need and the thing that I felt really passionate about fixing because I nursed Amelia for 26 months. So that was a long time to like figure out what to wear all the time. And thankfully I worked from home where I could like dress nice from the top half.
Right.
But I still had things like board meetings, or I wanted to go to brunch or like something nice, and or like special events. And so that's what I decided to design for. And it's so funny. It was kind of like last year around the summer that I decided, okay, I'm going to take this from like side hustle project to I'm going to do this like fully and I'm going to go all in. And it was June of last year when I dissolved the original LLC and formed a Delaware C Corp because I was like, all right, I'm doing
Yeah.
it. I got to
We're
do
gonna
it.
do it big. Yeah.
So I took the plunge and then decided like, okay, I'm gonna raise capital for this and like do it right. Because I was like, I don't have enough money to bootstrap the whole thing, but I can get started. That's when I did it. Thankfully, I found a really great pitch coach that helped a lot in refining the deck, and like she also just saved my life with this because I was gonna try to make like 8 dresses, and she was like, no, start with like 1 to 3. And she also was like, start with the bra or the dress, not both.
Yeah. Make it exist first. We'll make it epic as we go.
Yes. And I was like, how hard could it be? A bra and a dress at the same time. So glad I took her advice.
Yeah. Turns out. Okay. How old was Amelia when you went like full on into it?
It was last summer, so she was like a year and a half old. And yeah, that's when I was like, okay, I'm going to start trying to raise money. And That's when I
Yeah.
started basically having multiple full-time jobs because I still had my day job and then doing this.
And I was curious too, like how much I'm sure just like being in proximity to the health world, like your understanding and knowledge of like the fibers, I'm sure has increased. But I would, yeah, I'd love to hear a little bit about that. I can't remember if I shared with you that I'm currently on a mission to like go like a full swap to like an organic closet. And man, even non-nursing clothing in
It's
organic
hard.
fiber is like the bra is really. I'm like, I just saw you post one, but still, it's like where are these clothes? And so I'd just love to hear like what made that such a non-negotiable.
I mean, really, it was reading the science about it. And like, I working in health tech did help with that because, like, with my day job, when we start, everybody has to go through training of like how to read scientific papers and like how to like check the sources and all this. And at the time when I went through it, I was like, I'm never going to use this. And now I'm like, oh, wow, I'm actually really glad that I learned this stuff. And like, there's been a lot of research out of Mount Sinai. There's a specific doctor there that like studies this a lot, and she's published about the impacts on fertility from the microplastics and the PFAS that's leaching off of polyester. And then this last summer, she published that the microplastics are also settling and accumulating in your body and increase your risk for type 2 diabetes. Like, so many people, my kind of first like tip to this was when Shein got really big and a bunch of the clothes tested positive for like lead and all these other like heavy metals. Literally nothing happened. Like, there was news stories about it, but everybody still buys from Shein. And I'm like, why? How? I don't understand how you can, like, the cognitive dissonance that has to happen for you to know that it's like potentially poisoning you and then choosing to do it anyways. It's wild to me. But I hadn't gone to the extent of like, okay, no polyester. Because I was like, oh, well, I'll just like buy stuff that's like European made or like, more expensive brands. They must not be
Right.
poisoning us. Like, cost equals better. No, not the case at all. And like, actually, some of the most well known, like, biggest brands are the worst offenders. All their stuff is polyester or nylon. And it's like they don't use any natural fibers because polyester is cheap and durable and holds its shape and like you can
And so
literally make
very
it do whatever you
scalable.
want. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when Amelia got diagnosed with eczema, the doctor said like make sure she's only wearing natural fibers, which we already had that rule. Like because I we are supernatural minded and I was like, okay, I'm not going so far to do it for myself, but for my daughter, like you always want better for your kids. And
Totally.
I was like, I'm buying the chlorine free diapers and like all the other stuff. So I was like, okay, she's not going to wear plastic clothes. And then I started, after she had eczema, I was like, what's the actual science behind this? Like, I was doing this just from like, I've heard that it's better, but let
Sure.
me actually go down this rabbit hole. And then I started reading about all the science and like, there was one study where they made dogs wear underpants and they did like
What?
they wore polyester, like 100% polyester, 100% cotton, and then a blend of polyester and cotton, like a 50-50, and then one group in wool, like 100% wool. Well, the dogs wearing polyester pants couldn't get pregnant. Like, they actually tested these dogs over time, and the dogs wearing 100%, like, I think 90% of them couldn't get pregnant. The dogs wearing the 50-50, like 60% of those dogs couldn't get pregnant. And they couldn't get pregnant for up to 6 months after they stopped wearing the pants. And they tracked their like estradiol and like all of the different hormones, and that was why their hormones were off from these underpants. And I'm like, obviously that's dogs and not humans, but like,
We're all nature.
exactly. Hormones are hormones. And like now we've proven it in humans too, that like that was the first Mount Sinai research. It's like it is impacting your hormones. And like we have so many hormone disruptors in our environment. And like we live in such a toxic world. And I think a lot of people get stuck in this like, well, we live in a toxic world. You can't cure everything. So why even try? But that's like saying like I have to drink a little bit of this poison, so I might as well drink the whole thing. Like it just like lower your toxin load where you can. And that's what we decided to do. And so it's I mean it's been a process, but I think like end of last year, my husband and I both went through our closets and took out everything that was polyester. Like, with the exception of jackets, you can't find a jacket that's not polyester, but it doesn't touch your skin. Like anything that touches your skin,
Literally.
yeah. It was like no polyester. And it's been hard, like rebuilding from that.
It
But
is, but
it's worth
also
it.
you feel better.
Yeah. Yes. And I do feel better. I'm not like sweaty and having hot flashes and itchy and like it's now if I had to wear something polyester, like I have one sweater that's polyester. I'm like, oh, this is gross.
I know. I literally yesterday was thrifting, and it's like you go and it's like immediately and it's
Yeah.
like
You don't even have to
that's
look at the tag.
real.
Yeah.
No,
You touch it and you're like, nope.
I
Yeah.
know. And then in the same day, so one of my best friends is a personal stylist that specializes in like thrifted bundles. And she'll sometimes go pick up these bags from like people's closet cleanouts. And the amount of like those brands, like is it Shein and like Timu and stuff, like
Yeah.
it doesn't even feel like fabric. And it had been so long since I'd like interacted with something like that before. And it's like, I cannot imagine even being paid to like put that on my body.
Yes. Much less like your child's body.
No, I don't even have kids. Even my dog, I wouldn't even make him wear those pants. So no, I just thank you for sharing some of the insight. I had attended a conference in October for the metabolic health. It was just a metabolic health conference, and that was the first time that I'd ever heard it spoken about in like a medical sense of like, no, it's literally altering the way that your body like functions. And I feel like I can even sense it in like my energy levels, like if I'm wearing, plastics versus organic. And so
Yeah.
it's very cool to just hear that that's not just like a guiding measure, but like that is the standard. That is the new standard. And so it's a worthy mission, and I love that you're in it.
Yeah.
Um, is there anything else you want to share about the actual make of it? Because I really am pretty unversed in the set like that as and so like if there's anything you'd like to share about like the process of just things that have surprised you, I'd be so happy to hear about.
Yeah, I mean it is way harder to make a dress than you think it is. It's easy to make a dress. It's hard to make one that is high quality and looks good on everyone. And like we specifically are doing knitwear for everything because it has mechanical stretch. So like the way that the yarn is knit together, it has stretch without putting elastic in it. And so that elastic is obviously synthetic. And so, in wanting to avoid that, I was trying to find a way that we could still be accommodating to like changing postpartum bodies while still being fitted because like your maternity clothes, like you can keep wearing maternity clothes, but they're all baggy. And when you're done being pregnant, you don't want to wear that anymore. You want something that's more fitted and you want to feel like you again, but you're still your body's changing. Like I've been like four different sizes and I've had all these different wardrobes because it was like pre-pregnancy, pregnancy, early postpartum. Now like it's a process, and so my goal was to make something that would like you could wear throughout because we're specifically targeting like the trying to conceive cohort as well because it's such great timing. Netflix just produced a documentary called The Plastic Detox. And it literally, so I've not had time to watch it. I've like read the notes and like been listening to people's conversations about it, but it follows like six or eight couples through their infertility journey. And like they're trying to get pregnant and they detox their life from plastic, including all of their plastic clothes, and then they're able to get pregnant. And so it talks a lot about just how we're getting these microplastics from everywhere. And I'm like, this is so timely. And
Truly.
we like our dresses are perfect for the mom who's trying to conceive because she cares about her hormones. She is wanting, and like the nursing access is hidden. It's not obvious. It's just a regular dress that happens to work well for nursing. And like the sweater dress, you can take off the sweater layer and it can be a sleeveless dress, or you can put the sweater on and have the sweater. So it's nice to have the versatility too, because sometimes when you're trying to conceive, you're on hormone cycles and stuff like that, and you're having the hot flashes. And so being able to take off that layer is nice as well. So it's very interesting. Like One of our very first pre-orders was actually from somebody who wasn't even a mom yet and was like in that trying to conceive cohort. And I was like, this is really cool. Like what we make is not just for nursing moms, but it supports nursing moms.
Oh, I love that. And how cool that we as a collective are waking up to be like talking about what plastic is
Yeah,
doing. But I mean, divine that it's timing out with your company, but
I
like
know.
also the world, like how neat that we're starting to talk about these things. I did
Yes,
not realize that the hope was to be from like even pre-pregnancy all the way through. That's
yes.
so cool.
Yeah, so we and like I definitely don't think our dresses will fit at like 9 months pregnant, but I think
Does
I think
anything
they'll
fit
probably
when you're 9 months pregnant?
no, no.
Right. I was like, I think you just lay in a blanket from what I know from my sister.
Yes, like steal all of your husband's shirts. I ordered a bunch of like size large t-shirts and just wore that like
Exists.
but I wanted to make something that was not just for one season. And so like all of our designs are like timeless kind of classic designs versus like super trendy. So I want something that's going to be in the closet for like decades because you're like this is a nice piece and it serves me through all the seasons. And then we want to expand into kids wear as well. So like dressy kids wear stuff just because we're already supporting moms, so might as well make some matching kids stuff.
It's so endless. Like I can't think of a demographic that really wouldn't be supported by natural, nice looking, and comfort. Like it looks good.
Yes.
And there's really not. So that's, I mean, exciting in and of itself, which actually brings me back to what is home? Like what was that name? Because I'd never heard you say honeysuckle before. So
Yeah.
where did the name come from?
Yeah, so we were originally Honeysuckle, and I realized that I could not trademark that. It started out Honeysuckle Nursing Company when it was just going to be the nursing bra, but then I was like, okay, I want it to be bigger than that, so I'll just shorten to Honeysuckle. And my niece had even hand sketched a logo for us that I now have tattooed on my arm. We actually both have it tattooed. We have matching honeysuckles that she drew. And then I couldn't trademark the name Honeysuckle. There's like all these other companies, and like even if you spelled it differently, like it was just not going to happen. And I did not like, I actually got some advice from some other well intentioned founders who were like, you should just wait on the trademark until you're bigger and you have more money. Like, it's not the best use of funds right now. And I was like, well, my lawyers wholeheartedly disagree. Like that was like that is one of the biggest pieces of advice that I could give any founder that's starting out early is like trademark your name and make sure that you can trademark your name before you choose it and print tags and labels and all of this because I have talked to multiple people who've had to rebrand because they've gotten in trouble like for trademark infringement and then they've had to like get rid of a bunch of stuff or reprint tags and so thankfully, I went down that path early on and realized before I had printed anything. And so then I went through an exercise of like, okay, well, what do I want the name to be? That took like a month of
It's a
trying to,
big deal.
yes,
Yeah.
it was so hard. But I wanted something short and that could apply across all the different like demographics, like men's clothes, even, or housewares eventually. Like, I want to make organic cotton throw pillows because they're all polyester too. Like, I was like, okay, well, what am I like doing in this? And I'm like honing this craft of making things out of natural fibers. And then I was like, oh, that's a
Am honing.
yeah. And I was like, hone, I like that. And so I kind of like sat with it for a while and was like, all right, this feels good. And then I partnered with a design agency to do the logo and the word mark and all of that stuff. And they just did an amazing job. And that whole process was also very challenging, but it's
It's so many decisions, and you're also like, I would really just love to be building the business.
yeah. Like marketing is the least favorite part for
Yeah.
me.
Well, it is very beautiful, and I do love the name. I had never heard the story of actually where it came from. So, okay,
Yeah.
what's I'd love to swing back to kind of like the holistic view of your world right now, and like one thing that I love that you kind of in your narrative shift is like you really don't talk a lot about guilt. Like I like the narrative shift in and of itself. Like I'd love to hear your general philosophy around like just choosing your language. And then the second part to that is just like the holistic blend in which you view your life in. Because I think Evie Fatz actually is who told me at the beginning of like foundership of like balance does not exist. Like it is a very legitimate myth. And so the quicker you can learn to blend your life and make it one beautiful painting versus to take from this scale is to, and so I'd just love to hear a little bit about like the general blend in which you view your world through and then kind of the narrative in which shapes it for you.
Yeah, that is such a good point. Like balance does not exist. It is absolutely bullshit. And I think balance exists for men who get to like go to work and they don't carry the mental load of like moms. But for women, like it doesn't exist. We as moms, we naturally take everything on and like I'm okay with that. I maybe it's my personality, like ops minded. It doesn't bother me. I like to be in control of things, but
Yeah.
I the
Especially
mom
when you're good at it. It's like, I got this.
yeah,
Good. Yeah.
like the mom guilt will like creep in sometimes where I'm like, I feel like I should be spending more time with Amelia instead of working right now, or like it's hardest in like little acute moments when she's like on the other side of the door screaming to come in and I'm like on a call and I can't comfort her. But then I get the opportunity to explain to her afterwards, like, hey, I love you. Mommy was working and now I'm here and now is your time. And so it's actually like teaching her boundaries and it's also teaching her to prioritize herself. But now she has a fun habit of saying, I'll tell her, like, oh, come here so I can put your pajamas on. And she says, no, mom, I'm busy.
Good.
And I'm like, okay, well, she's learned the boundaries.
Excellent.
Yeah. And I have to like train myself of like, okay, well, I have to show her the same respect that I want shown to me. And like, I think that is one of the biggest things in parenting, the little thumb thing.
You even gave him the Zoom, said thumbs up to the parent.
So funny. I think that is one of like the biggest things in parenting that I've embodied and that my husband and I both try to do is always treat her the way that we want to be treated. And that sounds really simple, but when you're parenting, it's easy to say like, give me that. Or, oh, I'm going to move you, or like, I'm going to do this. But then you're not respecting their bodily autonomy. Or like, if you're yelling at them, well, they're going to yell back at you. And
They
you're
are a
teaching them.
mirror.
Yeah, and like you're teaching them that it's okay. And if you snap at them and lose your cool, like you're teaching them that that's okay. And like yes, we're humans and we make mistakes, but you have to repair that like very quickly. Like we have a like between me and my husband, we have an agreement to like call each other out when we see that stuff of like, hey, you need to apologize. Or like,
Yeah.
hey, take a minute and then like you need to like repair the relationship there. And I think that that is like so important and having those opportunities to show Amelia like, hey, we're not perfect because I never want her to grow up thinking, oh, mom's perfect and doesn't make any mistakes, so I have to be perfect. So I tell her like, hey, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't have lost my cool. I shouldn't have grabbed that away from you. Like, unless it's something dangerous, obviously. Then I tell her, like, hey, I'm keeping you safe. But like, really just treating her the way that I want her to treat everyone else in the world. And like, I think that is something that a lot of parents don't put like concentrated effort into. But doing that has kind of helped alleviate the mom guilt because I'm just treating her like I would treat my husband. Like she's just another human. And I give an explanation and I say, like, okay, this is my time to work and I'm going to do this. And I can't cater to your needs right now. And that's okay. And it's gently teaching her that everybody has autonomy and everybody has their priorities that need to be respected. Now, as a mom, is it hard to respect when she's telling me she's busy and we got other things to do? Yes,
Sure.
it is very difficult when I'm like, we need to go. And she's like, I'm busy,
In a
mom.
minute. in a minute.
Or she said 2 minutes, 2 minutes.
But I mean that autonomy, like, and the fact, I think again, a thing I admire so much about you as a person is just your willingness to like show up and have a conversation, like even with a 2 year old.
Yeah.
That's pretty incredible. And like the way that I know that must just be shaping her to move through the world and like not meet strangers. Cause I think that's another piece that is just like, as children, like the way that we speak to them is exactly that. Like we're offering a mirror. And so to send them out into the world with some of the mirrors is damning, I would say, even. But like to really be teaching that not only is it safe, but it's expected to be able to communicate your needs. That's so, so incredible. I feel like what's some other ways of like, and it can be in motherhood, but in other pieces of your world of like just this blend that you've had to learn to communicate a little bit different. Like the tired mom narrative is one of my favorite things that I've heard you speak to. Like, what's been a big shift in the way that you equip yourself to like speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, your words carry so much power and you speak your reality like into existence.
Yes.
And whatever you put energy into is what you're calling into your life. And like, if you're focused on, I'm so exhausted, or like, I don't want to do this right now because I'm too tired, like, you're just putting all of those negative thoughts into your brain. And you're like, you can't overcome things if you don't believe that you can overcome them. And I have always just had this belief that whatever I want to achieve, I can achieve. And I've carried that into everything including motherhood. Like I want to be a calm, safe space for my daughter. And I wasn't always that way. I would used to be a very reactive person and like have crazy emotional swings because I didn't know how to put the words to those emotions. I didn't know how to communicate them. I didn't know how to set boundaries. I was a people pleaser and I would just take everything on. My husband and I always say like we're both reformed people pleasers. Like, I still fight those tendencies. Like we both still have them and it's another thing that we call each other out on of like, hey, we need more boundaries here
Yeah.
with external people. But like I willed myself into being a calmer, safer space for my child. And that's how I like approach everything. It's like I can will myself into this if that is where I put the energy and I don't focus on the negative.
What else is there to be said? Like, I couldn't agree any deeper that like we really are creating so actively what we're speaking. And again, look at the roster in which has brought you here. Like, there couldn't be any clearer proof. So I just appreciate the word you put to explaining it. I I have a little bit of a personal question for you. So as someone who personally like very much still on the fence about kids, like really don't know about it. I would just love like what do you wish you knew about like motherhood or postpartum, like whichever feels bigger that like just what do you wish you knew before stepping into it?
Oh, man. So I also didn't think I wanted kids for a long time. Like I told my parents I'm never having kids. And when Jarrett and I met, we both bonded over the fact that neither of us wanted kids. And bless his heart, I changed my mind. It's I don't know if it was like a timing thing or I watched my niece who is only like 4 years younger than me give birth and I was like present there at the birthing center for the birth of her daughter and it was such a beautiful experience, also really overwhelming. Like crazy long day, but I had already been on the fence about it. Like I had turned 35 and I was like, I don't know why. I just like woke up one day and was like, maybe I actually do want kids. And I think that came from a place of finally feeling like I could be the mom that I wanted to be because I always knew I wanted to be this calm, safe space, but I didn't have confidence in my ability to do that. And then I started working at the job that I'm working at now, where it was like a lot of stability, and I had this positive role model in
Yeah.
my boss. And he had a kid. His son was born in like 2020. And so his son was a couple years old when I started working for him, and just watching him go through parenting and like always keeping a positive attitude about it. I was like, okay, like maybe So I started broaching the topic with Jarrett, and he was like, "What?
We
I
talked
thought we,
about this.
yeah." He's like,
Yeah.
"I thought we didn't want kids," and I was like, "Yeah, but like you'd be such a great dad," and like, and then I just started challenging him of like, okay, well, why don't you explore like why you don't want to be a dad? And like, so he went to therapy for the first time in his life and like worked through that stuff and then realized like, okay, yeah, it was fear holding me back. So fear was holding both of us back. And like, after my niece had her baby, I remember calling Jarrett the next morning and I was like, well, I don't think I want kids after this. Like, that was so intense. Like, we were at the birthing center for like 16 hours and I like didn't eat the whole time and I just felt terrible. I felt so overwhelmed and all I could think about was like, she must be feeling 10 times worse and she has to take this baby home and take care of it now.
Right. This is day one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like no break. Like she's right into it. And so I called Jared and I was like, I don't think I want kids now. And he was like, well, and I was like, oh, that little bit of hesitation. I was like, okay, he does want them. I always kind of had that in the back of my mind of like, I think he does want them. It's just fear holding him back. And once I knew that, I was like, okay, we're gonna have kids. It took a few more months for him to like fully come around, but then I was like, all right, let's do it. And I think the biggest thing that I wish I would have known before that I want people who don't have kids to know is like we talked about earlier of like your capacity to meet people depends on how the capacity to meet yourself and like how deeply you've gone with yourself. And it's the same for love. Like your capacity to love is like comes from within and how much you love yourself. And so I think it's so important for people to truly love themselves before becoming parents because it's very testing of everything. Like it's hard and you will see all of the parts of yourself reflected back at you. And if you haven't done that inner work, then you're going to be triggered as hell by those
Bit
parts.
of a glaring mirror there. Yeah.
Yes. And like, and that's why so many people who don't do the work before are like, oh, I'm like reparenting myself as I'm going through this. And like, I feel like because I did the ketamine therapy and I did so much where I like reconciled that and truly loved myself, I don't have that same challenge. But had I had kids 5 years before, I can't even imagine. If I had not worked through all of that, it would have been an absolute shit show. And I would have been super reactive and overtouched and probably stuck in that negative cycle of like, I'm so tired, I can't do this. Like, and now I have the ability to like pull out of it and say, okay, yeah, I'm tired, but it's just another day. Let's go. So I think that's one of the biggest things is like, I wish I would have known beforehand that because I had done the work, I was going to be a good mom because I was scared before. And then I had her and it just like came so naturally of like, of course I love this tiny human. And like, of course it's easy to be patient with her because it's like being patient with myself and my own inner child. And like, yeah, there's hard parts. I'm never going to say it's easy all the time, but like, the capacity for love is expanded so much with a child. Like nothing, it's like I didn't even know what love was before. And now it's just like, oh my gosh. And it I am now that mom who tells everybody like do it, have kids. Like if you're emotionally stable, do it.
If run this test, would you change anything about like the way it all unfolded?
I think that I would have switched care to a different midwife. That is like the biggest because I so that was like one of the last it had to happen the way that it did. It was the last like people pleasing thing where I literally like my the midwife that I was seeing did not like me. There were two midwives in the practice. One of them was great. I really jived with her and that's why I went with them. And then the other one I didn't meet until later and like she just like had a visceral response to me and did not like me. And multiple people saw it and I didn't switch. And like my best friend, who is a doctor and was pregnant at the same time, she was like, here's some other midwives. Like, you should consider seeing somebody else. You should switch care. And I was like, oh. no, I feel bad. And like that was literally my reason was I feel bad telling this person that I no longer want to have them taking care of me and I want to switch. And now in hindsight, I'm like, how silly to be like, this is the most transformative experience of my life, but I'm going to prioritize this person's feelings. So, like, I say that I would change it, but at the same time, it also made me realize, like, just how silly people pleasing is. Yeah.
I mean, and our intuition knows, but
Yeah,
it's not always the loudest voice in the room. So, totally
exactly.
fair. Okay. Well, speaking of transformative experiences, right in this season of your life when things are so McChillin, you guys are going to move across the country.
Yes.
A little bit about what's driving that decision.
Well, I can't sit still.
Right.
And everybody likes to joke in my life that I like can't sit still for more than 2 years. I did live in Austin for 10 years, and that was like the longest stretch that I have lived anywhere since I left home for college. I have just moved around all over. I'm a Sagittarius, and it's just who I am. I get bored, but Jarrett and I have almost moved to San Diego multiple times. He's from there. His mom lives down there still. We have no family up here. And so that makes it hard raising a toddler. And like, I want Amelia to have her grandma around, and she loves her grandma so dearly. But the other side of it is building home. And like, my target demographic is down there. There's so many amazing mom founders down there. And I am so excited to build like an in-person community of mom founders. I am so jealous of women who live in these big cities and they get to like go to these different meetups and like all these different things. And I'm like, oh man, like we just don't have that here. It's like I have to get on a plane and fly somewhere for that. And so being in San Diego, we've got all of San Diego, and then LA is great for fashion and the meetups and like everything. So it's so wild from the time that we decided to do it to the time that we leave will be like 6 weeks in totality. Yeah. We literally started talking about this in March. Like, I went to a pitch competition in North Carolina, and when I was flying home that day, I spent the entire flight like talking to Perplexity about the logistics and taxes and like all these different things. And I told Jarrett, like, I really think we should do it. And he was like, no, like we had literally talked about it like 2 months before. And he was like, no, let's just wait until things are a little more stable and like home is in a better place. And like, I can't explain it, but my intuition was just like, now is the time. Like this is when it's meant to happen. And he really trusts me and trusts my intuition. So we decided like, all right, let's do it. And we explored selling our house, and then we decided to rent it out, and we put it on the market thinking like, oh, it's going to take like a month to find a good tenant. Literally within 4 days, we had found the perfect tenants. I mean, I say perfect, knock on wood, but
They're going to be. They're going to be perfect.
we spent like an hour talking to them. They were so great, and they were like, well, we need to be out of our apartment by the end of April. I was like, well, I guess we're moving this month. Yeah, so we just like, I mean, I don't know, I've moved so many times that it like doesn't really stress me out. And this will be the biggest move because all the times that I've kind of moved before, I could like fit everything I owned in my car or in a U-Haul. Like we moved to Montana and came back, we used a U-Haul. But this time we're like using a pod and putting all of our stuff in it. And so it feels like more of like a big girl move.
Well, and you have a child.
Yeah, and the child part
The
of it.
whole thing.
Yeah, like a fourth of the pod is going to be like all her stuff and her toys and random things, but it'll be fun. And it's so funny because I started reaching out to female founders down there to like build the network. And in the same week, I met three women who are from the same city that my husband grew up in. And like he grew up in Carmel Valley, like it's a small place, and I met three different women who were from there. And I was like, okay, this is just a sign that like we are on the right path. Like, what are the odds? And these are like, they spanned all different age ranges. Like, it was just such a clear
You
sign for
can't
me.
miss that.
Like, yeah,
Right.
like we're doing it. And I don't know. I'm like not, I'm stressed, but not at the same
It
time.
like a logistic stress, not a knowing
Yes.
stress.
Yes.
It's different. And I think like where you're at in your season is like, I mean, in any season, proximity is everything, right? Like your environment quite literally shapes your reality. But
Yes.
I mean, the village that you must be calling in this season for both like motherhood and also foundership like is everything. And so I think it's pretty epic to be like intuitively led to where you're supposed to live.
Yeah. I have always followed my intuition, and I will say like in motherhood it got even stronger, and like, or maybe it was like slowing down. I got better at listening to it.
Okay. Well, I think my really like last question officially is that of like just for the people in your world right now, like whether it's in friendship and business, whatever it is, like what does support look like for you in your current season?
I think for me it's interactions like this where I just get to connect with humans. Human connection is literally what fuels me. I've spent the last 5 years working from home, and I'm actually like really excited to work in person. I never thought I would say that because I was always so adamant about working from home. But the opportunity to go in the office and see other people and like go grab coffee with people and just like have those interactions throughout the day, because you never know where they're going to lead. Like,
Right.
we met from a pageant sponsorship and it's turned into so much more. And like, I find that so beautiful. Like the way that friendships and like relationships in general just unfold is so fascinating and so cool when you're like meeting other aligned people and like building that tribe around you. It's just, it's really cool.
Can't echo that loud enough. I literally feel like I was writing before we hopped on the call of just like, like where do I want this conversation to go? And where I just kept coming back to was like, I literally just feel lucky to know like you and the version you are. Cause I think meeting other women, but also people, like the connection of and willingness to say, like, hey, I'm out to like really do something and be witness to that is nothing short of a gift. And so just like, thank you so much for the time and just your transparency and your rawness and all that you do because it just it makes a lot of pieces that felt inaccessible accessible, I think, to a lot of people. So just thank you.
Thank you for doing this.